Hey there, it is Nick Zangle. Welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things social, political, and cultural. And today we are going to lean a little bit more political in topic, but it falls also into the social and cultural category. So if any of those topics are things that you are interested in hearing commentary-wise every week, make sure to subscribe to wherever you're watching this, whatever channel you're watching on. Make sure to subscribe and let's get into the video. So today I want to give a preface very similar to the preface I gave to my last video that was a topic on Candace Owens, and this topic today, this video, is actually Charlie Kirk, who was a close friend of Candace, which I will touch on later. But I want to preface this by saying I do think Charlie, just like Candace, is extremely important to the conservative cause and to the cause that he claims to support. I think both of them are very important to bringing people into the political activism or being involved more in politics, especially young people that are conservative who tend to be less prominent or pushed less in mainstream media and on social media by the owners of those companies. And I will revisit this importance at the end of this video and kind of wrap it up with everything I'm going to talk about in the video, but I want to make sure I make that very clear here that this is not a bashing video or discrediting or trying to ruin them. This is just me pointing out some things that are kind of giving me a little bit of a weird vibe and making sure that I get these thoughts out there, because if anything that's kind of unsettling to me, I feel like it's better to just talk about it, and hopefully I'm wrong about these things because that would be the easier way out. But if I happen to be right, I want to make sure that I do my due diligence to put it out there in case some of these claims or some of these things I find a little weird. Maybe I'm not the only one who sees that. So let's get into the video. So I want to start off by kind of explaining, kind of laying the groundwork for Charlie Kirk and who he is. Maybe you've seen him before, maybe you haven't, but most likely you have seen him or have associated with him with an organization called Turning Point USA, which is a pro young people, young person, millennial, Gen Z organization that advocates for conservative values. And a while back they actually were folded into or kind of bought out or consumed, grabbed, whatever you want to call it, the Students for Trump organization. So now Turning Point USA and Students for Trump are one and the same. And this kind of brings me to my first point of something that was a little, when I found out about this, I was kind of skeptical about it, and that is that Turning Point USA was founded in 2012, around 2012, maybe before that. But what really got Turning Point off the ground and started expanding nationally was when it got a boost in funding-wise after the 2012 Republican National Convention, or the RNC, and allegedly Charlie, who founded Turning Point USA, met and convinced a prominent donor in the Republican conservative space to fund and to grow the Turning Point company, the brand. And so that is what kind of led to Turning Point expanding nationwide and bringing chapters to all across the country, high schools and colleges. Now, this is another point that is kind of something that I was a little concerned about when I found out, was that Charlie himself is actually, from what I know, a college dropout. So he's never graduated college. And one of the bigger things that Turning Point does is visit college campuses and host these events called Culture Wars. Culture War. I don't know why I'm second guessing myself, but Culture War, where Charlie, Candace, previously Candace, and she might still be doing events there, but obviously college campuses aren't open for big events, and some other people involved in the conservative space regarding commentary and activism would go to college campuses and host these events where they would be up on stage, and the college students would be able to ask them questions or challenge the conservative views that they had, because on college campuses, the conservative Republican viewpoint is not usually the popular view, and is usually met with a lot of censorship and criticism and pushback from administration, even to the point where speakers for Republican student groups are usually banned or treated a lot differently than maybe a liberal or left-leaning Democratic guest speaker. And so that is what this culture war event does. And of course, you've probably seen and heard stories of these events causing quite the firestorm and quite the circus outside of these events and even leading up to them. And I could probably touch on my own story on my experience when I was in college on these events and how I've reacted to them on campus. But if you want to hear more of that, let me know in the comment section. I can do a whole story on kind of the difference I noticed between conservative speakers on campus and more liberal speakers on campus. So that was kind of one of the main things, was the college part of the turning point when I realized that Charlie wasn't really a college graduate. The other thing is the corporate funding behind Turning Point USA, which was founded by Charlie Kirk. And I mentioned this, I just briefly mentioned this, how that funding really started at the 2012 Republican National Convention. Mind you, this, just kind of a note, this is prior to Trump running for president. From what I've been seeing, he was considering running in 2012, but nothing really came of it. And the reason the corporate funding part of things, part of the Turning Point brand, which is not really advocated or really touched on a lot, obviously, because in today's climate, corporate funding or corporate-backed politicians or whatnot, and a big part thanks to President Trump and also like the Bernie Sanders crowd, who have been making it a point to really get grassroots support, which is great. And honestly, I personally believe politics should be grassroots, meaning you actually have support because people support you, not because a certain corporation is pushing you to a certain demographic that they have, or there's big money involved to kind of drown out the competition. I think the person with the best ideas, who can communicate the best, should be able to make the point. And if you have the best ideas, it will grow naturally and you'll have a lot of support on the ground that will tell people who will tell people who will tell people. So that to me is where I think politics should be going and should always be. And it looks like we're kind of on that trend to go that way. The reason I bring this up as a point for Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA is because this corporate funding is not really talked about a lot. And I've heard Turning Point USA be referred to as a grassroots movement. So I'm kind of grappling with, is this a bad thing? Is this a good thing? Is the whole college Charlie Kirk thing a good or a bad thing? They could be both nothing burgers, but when I hear that he goes on college campuses and bashes them for their liberal kind of brainwashing, but then he didn't even finish college, it brings things, kind of his credibility and his intentions into question, the same way as touting your organization as a grassroots organization, but then having corporate funding that kind of really bolstered the presence of your organization nationally. So I'm trying to grapple with that, and like I said, they could be nothing burgers, but I thought I would bring that up in this video because that's what this video is all about, is kind of questioning some of the things regarding Charlie Kirk. Now we get to 2016. Okay, so we're at 2016. It's the Republican National Convention, 4 years after 2012. So end of Obama era. We are nominating a candidate. It's President Trump, or now President Trump, but then businessman, media mogul, marketing person, entrepreneur, real estate person, billionaire, as some people put it in quotes, be nominated for the Republican nomination for President of the United States. Now, what's interesting is I have been reading that Charlie Kirk admitted that he was not really a fan of President Trump, meaning Donald Trump isn't really his type of guy, meaning the way he acts, his demeanor, what he says, how he says it. It seems like that. But not long after not liking him, he went and did a speech at the Republican National Convention in 2016 endorsing President Trump. And so to me, endorsing President Trump after he wasn't a fan pretty quickly, and from what I hear, Charlie Kirk then kind of got involved with the campaign, and after getting funding from a prominent conservative donor after the 2012 RNC and then the growth leading up to the 2016 RNC, it was kind of to me a suspicious flip in demeanor or in thought process with regards to Trump. And so to me, it'll take some time to see if he flipped on his support for Trump because he was proven wrong, or something about maybe he met Donald Trump and was like, oh, maybe he's not the guy I thought he was, or something maybe had changed his opinion on Donald Trump, Or did he see personal gain or some financial self-interest in supporting President and Donald Trump because maybe he was going to be president and he could have at least 4 years of kind of support and have this base that he can mobilize and gain support for his organization. I think time will tell, and we will see how that plays out, whether President Trump wins a re-election or not. I think, and depending how, even if President Trump loses, how that loss and how that not having Trump in the White House will fare for all these organizations that relied on the Trump presidency and everything that came about it regarding support and real grassroots support for President Trump after he won. We'll see how that all pans out, but I wanted to make sure I give my kind of suspicions just in case I'm right, but I hope I'm wrong. Let me just say that. So now we're in 2020, and this is kind of the year that I found out a lot of these information in kind of late 2019, but what really sparked this inquisitive rabbit hole of mine regarding Charlie Kirk and of course Candace Owens, which I did a video on before, and a lot of these same principles kind of apply to Candace, but my last video was more regarding her recent lawsuit and kind of debunking her lawsuit announcement video, and at the end of that video I kind of did a few general comments on here, but this video is more all general. But anyways, I have in my notes here MAGA Doctrine, which is the name of Charlie's book. Is it the most recent one? I think it is, which stands for Make America Great Again Doctrine. To be completely honest, I have not read the book, but I do know I can probably pretty solidly assume that it's mostly regarding around President Trump, because the cover of the book has President Trump hugging the American flag around a pole. Unless that was all just kind of clickbait or title bait, cover bait, I don't know, to get people to buy the book, I can be pretty assured that that is what the book is about. So here is the reason why that's important. So in 2020, of course, we've been dealing with the pandemic. Everyone went through kind of a rough phase at the beginning of the pandemic, and so people were kind of poking fun at Charlie when he seemed to be, as what some people would put it, going off the deep end, meaning his look was getting a little sloppy compared to years prior. He was going on more emotional rants and kind of getting more mad. And it seemed like he was going off the deep end. But in my opinion, I think this is more of an indication and could support the idea of Trump maybe losing a second term and is affecting him, and that the idea that he may have put all of his chips in on Trump winning and kind of building his organization and his career off the Trump name or Trump movement, the MAGA movement, if you will. It might be kind of dawning on him that might not have been the best move, and he might be panicking at the thought that kind of time period that he had maybe planned on using might be coming up shorter than he anticipated or coming up faster than he really realized. Now, there have been recent clips that have been made this year from some of his work, Charlie that is, that could indicate that Charlie is kind of unraveling, but it could also be just a time that they caught him being a little more passionate about what he was talking about or what he was covering, and the imagery of what many of us have kind of suffered from this past year regarding the lack of like being able to go to a barber or a hairstylist, or having a little poorer of diets because you're just kind of trying to cope and like eating more comfort foods, because we were all kind of trying to grasp at whatever was comforting or kind of gave us some sense of relief in kind of an unsatisfying, uncertain time. You kind of grab at whatever you can to fix that. And we've all had to get a little more creative with working out and staying fit, because our normal things that we do to stay fit, whether it's you go to, I don't know, a farmer's market, or you go to the mall, or you go walking out in certain places where there was more crowds, you can't do all those things, so you have to kind of supplement it some way. And I think we all kind of went through a phase of transition and trying to figure out how to do that, especially when gyms aren't open and classes aren't happening the same way. So it could just be that. But the same could be said of others as far as this unraveling and whatnot, especially the subject of my last video, like I talked about, which is Candace Owens, who is a friend of Charlie's and former Turning Point employee. I believe she was a director of something like communications maybe. And so I chose to approach that video also in kind of an unemotional way for this very specific reason of not joining in on the emotional reactions to everything happening in the world. And the reason I chose to kind of cut through the noise that way with Candace Owens, with the topic before, the video before that, Katie Joy, the reaction to a lot of what's happening right now in the world is very emotional. And it's especially concerning to have emotional reactions to the emotional reactions of like the left-leaning people from the young conservative influencers like Charlie and Candace, who tout themselves as not the left. And so when I see these reactions of them acting like liberal, leftist-minded people who emotionally overreact or kind of let their emotions take over, it does kind of support my idea that maybe they aren't in this for the right reasons. Now, I don't have confirmation of that yet, or maybe I never will. Maybe they will prove me wrong, and everything I said in this video might be completely off base. But I just want to make sure I get that out there to maybe give anyone out there who's maybe questioned them as well, whatever side of the aisle you're on, give you an opportunity to feel the same way. And know that it's okay to kind of question people, even the people you like and that are on your own side technically. It is okay to question them and be critical of them because, one, it actually shows you care. Because if I didn't care about these two people, I would gladly sit on the side and watch them burn if there was no harm to my side in watching that happen. But I think it is harmful that these two people might actually be canceled or be in a scandal that could turn their big influence away from the important movement, I believe, of conservative values and of kind of supporting freedom and liberty and all these things that I personally believe. So that is why I'm being critical of these two people. It is not in any way to be hateful or anything. It's just more constructive. And if they happen to see this and maybe they haven't seen or heard this criticism from anyone around them, then maybe they can take it into consideration from someone who, like me, who actually cares about the movement. So let's move on. So another criticism I have of Charlie Kirk, which is the one I really hit on the head in my last video on Candace, so I'll keep it brief here, but is the milking the quote-unquote badge of honor of being banned or censored on big tech platforms like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and also not supporting using alternatives to them like Parler, which I mentioned in my last video. And it appears that he's been using Parler more recently, but it looks like it's more of a reaction to a lot of the censorship that's gone on Overdrive and on these other platforms. And it's showing me that they're being more reactive than proactive, supporting my previous point about the emotional reactions. And so I wanted to just touch on that really quick. I really beat it on the head last video, so I don't want to go too far into it. But this kind of just goes to the point that I've been saying all along is it seems like the goal is kind of a means. The goal of, or the idea and the things that they kind of tout and promote seems to be the means to an end to sell something, which is a similar criticism, like I said, I had to Candace, which to me is something I attribute to more of an establishment political characteristic or attribute of like the political system that people don't like. They don't like that money's involved. They don't like that people are getting rich off of being politicians, even though they don't make, I mean, they make more than the average person in America, but they don't make like millions a year off their Senate seat or off their House of Representatives seat. Those millions have to come from somewhere. Now, if you have businesses on the side that you're disclosing and you're honest about, I don't see, at least at the moment, the problem with that. But I mean, you can hate President Trump all you want, but we do know that he left his businesses, granted to family members, to be president full time. I think that's why he's gotten so much done in his first 4 years, and maybe his only 4 years. But what I see, the problem I see is some other politicians, which I hesitate to even say problem, because if you have the time and you can do your full-time job and still do these other things, I think more power to you. But President Trump didn't do that. He's setting the example of not volunteering his time to be a public servant and also doing it full-time and relieving himself of other duties. Now, I know it's not realistic to think everyone can do that because he's obviously wealthy, but there is something to be said for it. And I believe the original founding of our nation, public servants did not get paid to do it. It was all voluntary. So that could be a trend that might be becoming more and more popular, but that might also discourage people from entering the system and going and running for these offices. So that's another debate I'm having with myself, which is the best way to go about it. So anyways, but like on that same similar point, I understand that people have to earn a living and people have to live. I mean, nothing's free, even though people like to push the free college, free whatever narrative. But at some point, you reach a point where you start getting suspicious of people, and that's kind of how I've been feeling with Candace and Charlie. And in Charlie's case, I learned that he had some rather significant pay raises over the years from Turning Point after its growth and its revenue grew, and after that funding, of course, and the corporate interests. And then he's been selling a lot of books and products and things as of late. So just a few things that I kind of make me a little suspicious, but could be nothing, like I said before. And I think we are approaching the time where many of these people who have been trusted and gained a big following over the first 4 years of a Trump presidency, I think they're about to be exposed as frauds, as grifters, whatever you want to call it. And it could potentially be Charlie or Candace. Maybe it won't be. I don't know. I hope not. But like I said, I hope I'm wrong with both Charlie and Candace, because, and this is kind of the last point I want to end on, because they are very influential, and it would be really bad if they turn out to be these grifter frauds. It'd be really bad. And I just can't stop saying, I can't not say something when I think things kind of aren't quite sitting right with me. And I'd rather get it out there and say, I said what I said, and maybe be right, than never say anything and have it happen and not have warned anybody, maybe just one person. So that is how I feel. I'm going to wrap up there. So let me know what you think in the comment section about about Charlie Kirk, about Candace Owens, whichever one. And if you haven't watched my previous video on Candace, make sure to go back and do that. And if you liked what you saw here, make sure to give this video a thumbs up wherever you are, or however that works on whatever platform you are watching on. And if you're not subscribed wherever you're watching, whether it's on Rumble or on YouTube, make sure to subscribe so you get more videos like this every week covering social, political, and cultural topics. And with that said, I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.